Welcome, everybody, to another episode of Strife's Sanctum podcast. My name is Citizen Strife, and this week, more anime discussion for the season. And we're getting to the nitty-gritty of the season, so things are either starting to finish, or in my case, getting to the finish, because I tend to watch the dub versions, and some of the episodes are done, or the shows are done, aren't done, getting close, or really picking up steam. Some I have yet to get to this week just because of schedules with my jobs picking back up because of hockey season starting back up. So we had staff meetings and other things getting in the way, doing other stuff. So I will get to them when I get to a chance. My other voice acting stuff is also keeping me busy too, to an extent. So we're turning to meetups and other things of that nature. So I'm filling this in when I can, like right before bed. I've got an open time to get this out and recorded. So let's talk about it. Dandadan Cour 2. They introduced a weirdo, and I don't know if he's going to be main cast member or just a side character. I don't know if I like him at all. He does this whole spicy language thing, and he's just this really weird dork that shows up. They fought a kaiju, and then they turned into like an Eva Gundam robot-looking thing, a big giant mech, because of course, a weird show with kaiju and floating composer heads and ghosties and weird aliens that want your banana. It would go to kaiju and then go to Gundam. Of course it would go there. What else would I expect from Dandadan? So the few episodes I had of a break of them doing softer, nicer, quieter stuff is gone, and they went to the fucking weirdness again. And I'm not shocked that they went with, oh hey, here's a Megazord, let's just go. So I'm trying to find 50 different ways to call it a mech, because that's what it was. I don't know what this episode's going to do, but it's Dandadan. I'm sure it will go crazy. Toilet-bound Hanako-kun. This one is continuing on with the, what do they call it, the Red House. And they're throwing in kind of the backstory of one of the children basically becoming a ghost to fulfill a wish, but being unable to leave the house, and now it's starting to mess with things. Nene also basically got caught in a basically a weird place where people just decompose into nothingness, like their spirits just dissolve and then they exist as just not even evil spirit, but just shambling spirits. And one of the dudes was hoping to keep her around to talk to her, only for her to just be like, I don't want this shit, this is bad, which makes sense. Because they're ramping up a lot of the stuff that has to do with Hanako and his brother, and like what are the mechanisms, I think, of what happened, or in a weird way, was it that family? I mean, it makes sense. It would be. They look alike, and like one of them sacrificing themselves to basically help the other survive sounds very selfless, but it would also lead to a sacrifice of resentment. So leaning into that more and leaning into the relationship more, I'm curious what Tsukasa is going to sound like and do, knowing that that's kind of him they're talking about, unless they're subverting things and talking about somebody completely different, but that's not really what they're going for. The idea of the severance, separating all of the living and then all of the ghostly dead things, has led to some good spots. And I said that this season, even going back a couple of seasons ago, they really amped up their emotional storytelling for a show that was pretty good, but kind of set in the let's just do some weird stuff for the sake of being weird. This one is really trying to go further with the characters and their reactions to things and giving them some jumping off points that they're allowed to go in, and I'm really appreciating all the different areas that they're trying to go to without it feeling ridiculous. Because there is a point with a show like this where you can go too far in one direction and, you know, lose like the main plot. But they've had kind of two separate main plots, but they fit together really nicely. And I'm waiting to see how it ends, and it's only going to be a couple more episodes to do it. So that'll be really nice. Let's see. Sakamoto Days, trying to finish up the assassin's training with, you know, the orientation now with a weird catch the flag or catch the tail kind of thing. And they've got this crazy, creepy stalker fan yandere lady in the running who loves Sakamoto, but is one of those weirdos who doesn't actually know him, so she's dealing with the person who does know him the most. And it's like, well, I'm the biggest fan. No, you don't know shit about him. I do. It's great. Leading into a cow and her stuff and, you know, introducing her character. I like that they're trying to introduce new main characters that aren't just fucking weirdos, that are actually a little more like soft spoken in a crazy, because I've said this in like Danganronpa and, you know, stuff like Persona here and there, is I feel like the more boring or subdued, if you can do it right, can actually stand out when you have a sea of weirdness. And Sakamoto, the show is just all fucking weirdness. Not Dandadan weird, but superpowered weirdness of crazy shit that shoots people. You know, so having somebody who wants to do good, shows off power sets. You know, Tougen Anki is the same way. Like, your character can be very boring, but you can have something of importance if you back it up with some sort of power. And seeing what this new girl can do, not the yandere girl, but the new, like, softer spoken, you know, blue haired girl who sews. But then when she's creepy, she can just like go super fast and basically rip somebody's neck, you know, with a needle. That's fucked up and weird, you know. But she meant well. She just went too far. But, you know, having those moments to slow down a little bit, because Sakamoto Days does not slow down, and I would like it if it did. But, you know, you got to take the victories when you can get them. So having a new character that I like is fun. Let's see. Dress Up Darling Core 2. This one has been a bit of a disappointment, but it's starting to hopefully hit big again, because they've taken a detour away from Marine and Gojo being like an item, and they've been focusing more on the cosplay stuff and the cosplay stuff and the cosplay stuff. That's great and all, but there's only so much you can do if you're not really focusing on the characters again. So lo and behold, I complain about when they don't talk about characters enough. They finally do. You get this band of people, you know, 5 or 6 people. They're trying to do a group event or like a group cosplay, and they're getting it set up, but then they finally get some time alone, and, you know, a weird misunderstanding happens, and oh boy, what's gonna happen? It's cool. But again, I've liked these characters since the beginning of the show, but I felt like for a while they weren't really focusing on that part of the relationship, even though, like, that's the whole point of the show, is for them to get together other than the cosplay stuff. So it's like there's a backdrop, but there's a way you can kind of weave them back together a little bit more. So it's like they're not officially an item yet, so there's still things you can do. And I think now that the season's, you know, it's that end of season syndrome where they're just like, we gotta do a thing, let's fucking go now, you know. So they do. So maybe the show will pick up some steam and kind of get back to where it was when I first started watching it. Right now it's in that, like, good enough, I'm not like loving it kind of phase. Let's see. More cosplay friends. More cosplay friends. And Gachiakuta. That is ramping up. And it took a side detour into this painting city full of graffiti artists. But they're in the no man's land. So they're finally starting to introduce a big bad who sent out the weirdo poison fuck from the earlier episodes. And this show has really done what, and I've said this, like what Clevatess and Tougen Anki should, I keep saying Tougen Anki should have done, but making stuff and having fun with it. I think there's a sophistication in the crassness and the dialogue that elevates it over the other two, and gives it something that tries harder. And this weird trash heap of a world that they're in, but they're still trying to find fun in it while dealing with serious crap. Like in this graffiti city, they're trying to find this person who can grant a superpower via some tattoo art or some shit. Their rules, not mine. I'm going with it. It's superpowered shonen stuff. So they go to find it, only to find out that the person passed away and or got killed, or both. So this new girl got picked. And they've spent an episode kind of describing things and doing cool stuff, and then they, shoot off some fireworks and do some other things, and they get to a fight scene, and then fight off weird, crazy shit in the no man's land. So they are definitely picking up steam near the end. I think this show is going to keep going. That has been a thing that I've seen a lot more in the past year or so, is shows that are content in doing 24 to 26 episodes in concurrent seasons, rather than, or even doing split cours. But in some cases, in fact, a lot of cases, if you're doing like multiple runs in a row per season, because that wasn't the norm for a while, for let's say the last decade, unless you were something that just kept on going. You mainly just stuck to 12 episodes or 13 episodes or even 11, and you were fucking done. You waited a couple of years. And some are doing full 24 again, which I kind of appreciate. You have that good mix of stuff that lasts a while and still breathes. And Gachiakuta, definitely, with its storytelling, they have a lot of breathing and spaces they can fill. Never felt like they were overdoing it or over-explaining things just to get shit going. They have a lot of ground they can cover, so I'm glad that they're going to keep going into the next season so I can talk about it and keep liking it, because they haven't failed yet. Leviathan. Finally getting to the fun bits. Dylan Sharp and Alec falling for each other, or at least getting closer to it. Finally. Like, there's the whole cool stuff about going to New York and meeting a Nikola Tesla. No, I care about these two getting together and all blisters and shit. And I'm like, the issue I find is that they're at like episode 10 or 11 already. I'm like, is this show ending already? It just seems like they're trying to get through this really fucking quick. I forget if it was 12 episodes or more, but they're going very slow towards a solution that I think could have been like 5 more episodes, So I don't know where they're going to end, and I'm a bit disappointed because there's a lot of stuff you could be doing, but they're not doing, or they had sidetracks into other things that were fun, but, they're finally now getting these two together and doing things. It's like, okay, it's fine, but you could have... I think it finally started to work once they started realizing that they were, more than friends, because that's what they're doing. But the Leviathan stuff, they're doing fun things, but they're not doing exciting things. It's a serviceable show. So there's that. Tougen Anki, speaking of serviceable, I'm very happy to say the weirdo that... Well, let me wait for the ambulance to go by. Sorry, the ambulance is very distracting, especially at 8:15 at night or some shit. So Tougen Anki doing pretty well. Fighty, bang, bang, do stuff. The guy throwing zombie oni or whatnot at other people and creating monsters and shit. I was getting really sick of this guy. So the show does what it should do. I gets him out of the fucking way. I'm really glad. Because he spent like an episode or two basically just having him stand there watching as his grunt does this weird psychosomatic attack or whatever, psychokinetic attack or just like force attack that was trying to kill Shiki, and it was like, okay, get to it. No, I can't get it. You're doing this whole, don't kill him. No, kill him. Now you kill him. No, you kill him. No, he's not going to kill him. No, you're not. Then you do a superpower. Then he doesn't do a superpower. Then he does another thing. Then you take another break and you go to another thing with a different Momotaro person, and like you spend 5 or 10 minutes talking about that rather than finishing the fight. Then you go back and you finish the fight, and it's like, okay, good. You finally finish the fight. And I'm like, I just wanted that guy dead. Because he was one of those, like, he doesn't have a power of his own, but his power, if it exists, is more just him sitting there gleefully being a douche. And I'm just, like, getting more and more tired of him because he's not actually doing anything. He's mainly just fending off attacks and sending dudes to do the dirty work, which is fine, I guess, but it's more annoying than threatening because that's the impression I kept getting. So I'm like, please just fucking kill this guy. So they did. I'm kind of glad. So now that we can get to more interesting people, because the show has some fun stuff to it, but again, it's a shonen. You're just doing the fight scenes. And you're doing power leveling and power scaling and shit like that. So there's only so much you can do with it. Let's see here. Speaking of things that know what they are and don't try to do anything else, With You in the Rain. More of the same. In a good way. I've loved this show from the beginning. And there's nothing new. They even had an episode about doing nothing and just reveling in it, or accidentally having you ruin her manuscript, and Fuji just goes, it wasn't any good anyway. Or having her friend show up to a party and being like, yeah, let's go get drunk and let's just have fun and just do stuff. Or meeting different people and having fun, or helping out random strangers do random things at random times, and then you gets involved because he's cute and weird and fluffy and he can jot down words. You know, it's like he just exists. This show just exists to be what it is. It hasn't tried to add any new characters that have meant more. They just do what has to be done. Sometimes the neighbor shows up. Sometimes the family shows up. Sometimes the vet shows up for a gag. Sometimes a new pet shows up for a gag. Sometimes Fuji's friends show up. But really, it's just them screwing around the house doing random stuff. You know, basically from the first episode, if this is going to be for you, or you're going to hate it. And if you love it, it just is fun. It exists to be the show that it is. From episode 1, it hasn't changed a bit, and I'm very happy. Because it wasn't trying to be anything but a girl and her tanuki dog or raccoon alien just farting around having apples and, Fuji sort of drinking beer, but mostly watching other people drink beer, while she's trying to write stuff, or doing yoga, or wearing a bunny suit, or going out for a walk. There's nothing on the line. There's no stakes, and it's kind of nice to see a show not take itself so seriously, but do it so well that it's almost like too good for its own good. And I'm like, if you like shows that don't do shit, but do it very well, this is the best. And it stayed that way forever. So a few more episodes to go, I'm all for it. Let's see. But that'll do for today. Get to the thing. There we go. Cool. I've got Illusion of Gaia next week. Totally about Hanako-kun. East 10 Nordics. Zenshu. Vagrant Story. And going into December, I'm going to be talking about a show that I wish had a second season but didn't. Because I think the studio fucking died when we were making it, which sucks. Gangsta. Gangsta is great, and I wish there was more of it, but there isn't, and it sucks. So I'll talk about what does exist and why people should watch it. But that'll do for this week. Nice quick thing right before bed, and get it out there so I can keep going on with my recordings of my video game stuff tomorrow morning before work. So, see you next time. Citizen Strife, signing off.